And the most dangerous chain of them all was the chain of self-abandonment. The one where I convinced myself that my comfort comes last, that my boundaries are negotiable, that my voice is optional, that being a martyr is noble, that my calling can wait, and that my greatness must shrink so that someone else can feel big and seen, right? Royal One, hear me clearly. Any chain that requires you to disappear is demonic in nature because God never calls a woman to bondage. He calls her to becoming.
Welcome, Royal One, to audacity to rule. The unmuted awakening. This is where silence ends and sovereignty begins. Where power is remembered, identity is restored, and your voice becomes your crown. I'm your host, Queen Chi, and this is your summons to rise, rule, and roar. Unmuted, let's begin.
Welcome back to Audacity to Rule, the Unmuted Awakening. Royal Ones, today we enter the deep places, the places where chains aren't physical, they're emotional. They don't rattle, but baby, they whisper. They don't bind our hands, but they bind our choices. They don't imprison our bodies, but they imprison our identity, because some chains do not look like bondage. Some chains look like loyalty. And some chains look like love. Some chains look like being the bigger person. Some chains look like being endurance, patient, and long suffering. When in reality, sweetheart, they are self-abandonment dressed up as virtue. I know these chains all too well. The chains made me stay in places long after I should have left because peace left. The chains that taught me to shrink so that others can feel bigger. The chains that convinced me that if I just loved harder, gave more, tolerated more, apologized more, served more, then maybe I would finally be seen. Maybe I would finally be chosen. Maybe I would finally be enough. The truth is this: you can never good woman your way out of a place that God is trying to deliver you from. I had patterns that looked noble on the outside but destructive on the inside. Patterns of overgiving, patterns of overfunctioning, patterns of protecting people who were careless with my heart. Patterns of staying loyal to situations that had no loyalty to my soul. Patterns of shrinking so others wouldn't feel threatened by my calling. Patterns of being silent so others wouldn't call me dramatic or emotional or doing too much, These were not quirks. These were chains. Chains that were formed in my childhood where I learned that my needs were secondary. Chains that were reinforced in my adulthood where I felt like love, labor, and loyalty, were something you were supposed to do, right? Chains strengthened in relationships where I taught myself to hold pain quietly and smile publicly. And the most dangerous chain of them all was the chain of self-abandonment. The one where I convinced myself that my comfort comes last, that my boundaries are negotiable, that my voice is optional, that being a martyr is noble, that my calling can wait, and that my greatness must shrink so that someone else can feel big and seen, right? Royal One, hear me clearly. Any chain that requires you to disappear is demonic in nature because God never calls a woman to bondage. He calls her to becoming. He never calls her to shrink. He calls her to shine brightly. He never calls us to self-abandonment. He calls us to stewardship, and he never calls us to loyalty at the expense of our own identity. Galatians 5:1 says, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free," not partial freedom, not conditional freedom, not polite freedom, but freedom that is full, that is whole, and baby, so unapologetic. Do you hear me? Breaking chains is not about being hard. It's not about being selfish. It's about being whole. It's about being self-honoring. It's not about becoming confrontational. It really is about becoming clear. Just really, really clear. It's not about stopping love, right? It's about stopping the martyrdom of ourselves. And when we break these chains, something sacred happens. Our children and the people around us get to see a model of boundaries that they will inherit from us. Our lineage watches a woman who chooses herself without guilt. A future sees us who refuses to nurse dysfunctional situation and people. Heaven sees us as a daughter who finally agrees with what God's definition of what her value really is. Let me speak this over you. Every chain that required you to settle is breaking. Every chain that demanded your silence is breaking. Every chain that taught you to self-abandon is breaking. Every chain disguised as loyalty is breaking. Every chain forged in childhood conditioning is breaking. Every chain attached to people you outgrew is breaking. Every chain that kept you small is breaking. Breaking, breaking, breaking. Now, I need you to say this with me. I break the chain of staying too long. I break the chain of shrinking myself. I break the chain of self-abandonment. I reclaim my worth. I reclaim my identity. Now, let's declare over our generations. My children will not inherit my chains. My lineage will not inherit my silence. My descendants will not inherit my self-sacrifice. They will inherit strength, clarity, and identity. My breakthrough is their blueprint. Daughter, may every place where you once diminished yourself now expand with purpose. May every chain that concealed your brilliance fall off of you like thunder. May every pattern you break become freedom for 1,000 generations. May the woman you choose today become the legacy they rise from tomorrow. Go in your breaking, Royal One. For what you're shattering now, your lineage will never have to carry again. Thank you so much for joining me today for this episode. If this spoke to you, make sure you share it. Make sure you review it in the comments and send it to someone else who needs to know this information. This is Audacity to Rule, the Unmuted Awakening, and your awakening continues the moment you decide to unmute.